many of you have identified or have noticed gossiping in the workplace? I know. I know you're asking, where did she come up with this topic? Guys, I was giving a training session this morning, harassment training this morning. And we all know, come on, we have talked about this a million times. Bullying is the number one act of harassment. It's the most evident activity of harassment in the workplace. And we've all been harassed. But how many of us have actually identified gossiping as a form of harassment? When in fact, and if you've been listening to the podcast, you may have very well enjoyed the one on the 9 personalities or behaviors of harassment. Gossiping is in almost every workplace setting. And it's a common question that individuals like myself get from employers or business managers is, how in the world do I control the gossip? And let's clarify something real quick here. This is not just in the female-dominated work environments. Gossiping is present no matter who you're employing, no matter what the demographic is. And sometimes, I hate to say it, but sometimes your upper management is even more guilty of it because they know more and they're privy to more and they believe they have the privacy to gossip. But my question today is, how are you addressing this? And do you understand the importance of addressing gossip in the workplace? I referenced a number of sources on this one. And it was interesting that there are a lot of comments and approaches to gossip. But every single one of them, it's consistent across the board. Gossip damages the mental health of the entire work environment. In fact, one group even described it as a toxic, just a cancer within your workplace. It affects not only the time, because it sucks productivity. It literally, individuals gossiping will literally just spend more time on these topics than they are on what they're supposed to be doing and what they're being paid to do. So the distraction, it not only is bad for productivity, but it's also bad for morale. It's literally just destroys teams. Have you paid any attention to what exactly has been taking place when gossip is present in a particular department or a particular division? In fact, what we find is that when gossiping is taking place, individuals this sense of distrust, this sense of respect completely disappears. And individuals that may have worked very well as a team just crumble. The collaboration's gone. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. You all know, you've all experienced it, or you've stood back and watched it happen in a workplace that you've been in at some point. And when you stop and look at what actually is taking place, we all have to admit that the information that's being discussed in this gossip is normally very personal and private stuff. It's not stuff about necessarily positive things that are going on in the company, which, if you think about it, could be considered gossip. But when it's negative, it is a destructor, and it's hard to stop. So what I want to do is give you a couple of little tips here to think about. Because if we don't address gossiping in the workplace, it literally can lead to physical intimidation. It can literally be interpreted as a hostile work environment. And every one of you listening or watching this show know the implications of those two situations. No one should come to work and feel like they're being intimidated. Nobody should come to work and feel that they're walking into a hostile work environment. So here's a suggestion. Psychology Today had an article back in September of 2022. Barbara Greenberg, a PhD, wrote an article on workplace gossip. And what she recommends is that the individual who feels that the gossiping is being done about, or let's say somebody who's receiving the gossip, should take the next few steps. First, they should try to deflect it. If you've got an employee who feels like if somebody keeps running to them, we should empower them to say, look, I'm not really interested in that right now, but what about that milestone that we have tomorrow, or the project that we're working on? Deflect the conversation. We should also tell our employees that in these situations, just tell them you're not interested. If somebody wants to gossip, just flat out say, look, I'm really not interested. I've got too many other things going on. I don't want to hear it. Maybe that's too aggressive. Maybe that's too confrontational. If they're not comfortable with it, they should, without a doubt, just say, I'm not comfortable with this. Hopefully that's not too confrontational. Hopefully they will feel very comfortable themselves with this individual to say, yeah, I don't need this information. But Barbara's also saying that we should empower our employees to flat out ask why. Wait a minute, stop here. Why are you telling me all this? Why do you think I should be interested in this? Why is this important to me? Why is this important to know? You see, gossip has to be identified as what it is. It's not work-related. It's normally too personal for the individuals to be talking about if it's negative. If it's positive, well, great. Let's acknowledge that somebody did a really good thing, but then let's get back to work. Let's keep moving. I thought it was really interesting that one of the other articles, Indeed, that I ran across, literally said, look, the bottom line is we've got to empower our employees to understand that this is something you want to talk to us about. If you feel that there's a group of individuals gossiping, whether it's about you or whether it's about something else, come and talk to management. Come and talk to us and let us know what we need to fix. We've talked about that before with other situations. You can't fix something if you don't know about it. But if the employees aren't empowered and they don't know that this is important to you, why would they come and tell you? Gossip is so present in our society. Gossip is such an active part of a lot of our social media. We as leaders have to identify that negative gossip, anything that changes the productive, the positive culture in the workplace, is not needed. So if we can empower the employees to tell us when these things are going sideways or when this is happening, we have the responsibility to do the next following things. And that's number one, act early. We've talked about when do we investigate? Well, this would be one of those moments. Because remember, gossip is a type of harassment. And any claim of harassment or discrimination needs to be addressed immediately. Second of all, we need to understand as leaders that we need to lead by example. So if you've got a group of team leads or managers or supervisors who they themselves feel very comfortable gossiping, you need to address that because they need to be setting an example for your staff and your teams to say, we don't have time for this. This This is not the time and the place to be talking like this. We've got other things that are more important. We also need to be encouraging a positive communication, right? A positive environment. Let's talk positive about each other. Let's build each other up. Let's make it uncomfortable for someone to talk negatively, because that's just not how we address things in this workplace or in this environment. We talk positively about each other. We show respect for each other. We're also very inclusive. We show empathy for each other. Gossip very seldom is an expression of empathy. We also want to be very, very careful that we're watching and catching it before the employees actually have to bring it to us. You see, it's not always them. Sometimes it's us. And we really, really need to be watching our environment and holding people accountable as leaders of the organization. Are you talking about this to your management team? Are you talking about this to your department managers, your boots on the ground? You see, there are many, many employees, and we've talked about this too. Many employees are sitting back and watching to see how long management will allow something to go. How long are you going to tolerate bad behavior? How long are you going to allow a toxic work environment to continue? I called it cancer early in the show, and I will go back to it. Cancer will spread. And individuals don't want to come to work in a hostile work environment, in a toxic work environment. But you have to be, as leaders, you have to be prepared to speak to this and pull somebody aside and say, hey, it came to our attention. You made some of these comments, or you've been talking about someone, and very truthfully, we're not paying you to do this. There's no reason for this distraction in the workplace. Help me understand why this is so important that you're continuing this kind of conversation. The sooner you can address this kind of stuff, the sooner you're going to get more comfortable with this, and your employees are going to understand this isn't the time and the place to be talking about other people negatively. This isn't what I'm coming to work for, and this isn't what I'm getting paid for. And be mindful. If they're talking about work conditions, if you believe they're gossiping about terms of employment and compensation, you need to spearhead that quickly to solve those problems and concerns, because those are protected conversations under the National Labor Relations Board. And if you need more information on that, go back and listen to a couple podcasts, because we've talked about that. I want you to know here on The Human Resource. Thanks for listening.